Throughout the lifetime of Overwatch, Blizzard had put various characters through some reworks, some more times than others, and some more successful than others. As of the current meta, there are several heroes that the community cries for Blizzard to put through more reworks. These primarily being Brig, Reaper, Bastion, and somewhat Mei and Mercy. I do plan to make videos explaining how I would rework or tweak those heroes. However, today's video will feature a few unnamed and maybe surprising heroes. Today's video will feature a few of the tanks: Roadhog, Hammond, Reinhardt, and the curveball Doomfist. So let's get right into it.
Feel me like a Hellcat.
Before we get started, I have a favor. If you enjoy my content and want to see me continue to improve in both quality and size, please check out my Patreon linked in the description. Any amount helps and it is greatly appreciated. There are so many rewards for each level of donation, so go check it out. Now back to the video. Hey guys, this is Matt, the EmeraldAvenger, and welcome to Reworking Overwatch, a series where I take a handful of heroes and make a suggestion on how I would rework or tweak their kit to make them better suit their respective roles, or make them less niche or situational. Like I said, we are exploring the tank role with Hog, Hammond, Rein, and Doomfist, who is being reverted to the tank he was originally going to be before he was released. As will be normal for this series, we're going to start with the bigger reworks, then move to the smaller ones. So first off, Roadhog. My suggestion isn't 100% my idea, just as a disclaimer. Some of the mechanics were actually suggested by Blame the Controller. This will be a fact for a few of the heroes down the line as well. I divide the tank role into three separate subclasses: Shield or main tanks, Dive, and Bruiser, both of which can be called off tanks, but Bruisers not so much. Roadhog fits into the Bruiser class very well because Bruisers are typically high health DPS characters. The goal of this rework is to fix Hog to where he will be able to fit into the off tank role more smoothly. To start off, we need to give him some sort of tanking ability or passive, preferably the latter. What Blame the Controller suggests, and what I totally agree with, is a passive called Bodyguard. How this would work is Roadhog has a radius around him, let's say 8 meters for sake of discussion, where the nearest ally to him, say Junkrat, only takes 50% of damage dealt to them. The other 50% is dealt to Roadhog, preferably with a further damage reduction to where Roadhog only takes 25% damage. So let's throw some numbers out here. Both Hog and Junkrat are at full health. Someone hits Junkrat for 100 damage. Junkrat will only take 50 damage, and Hog will take 25. The other 25 is negated entirely, and does not help towards the attacker's ult. It, however, does not block or split healing or debuffs. This is one simple mechanic that would greatly add tanking capabilities to Roadhog's kit. But I think I could take it one step further. I would additionally like to suggest that Take a Breather be given a secondary mechanic. Since the animation already shows it to seep out gas, it's not that much of a stretch to assume that his allies could benefit from the fumes. So, the second passive, Hydrogen Fumes, would heal allies within the aforementioned 8 meter radius for a total of 75 health across 3 seconds. This gives Hog and his team several new avenues of approaching a fight. They could either use it offensively and hit a burst of healing at the start of the fight to keep everyone topped off for the first few picks, or it could be used defensively to keep allies alive through the end of a fight while stalling a point. This does pose the problem of the ability being a little too powerful. An easy remedy for this would be most likely a cooldown increase, but other things instead of or in addition to that could be reducing the range or removing ult charge gain from healed teammates. I feel that these changes would definitely shift him into a true off-tank role and would make him a lot more viable and versatile in the current meta, which he's already relatively dominant in. The next major suggestion isn't major because of what it adds, but for what it changes. Even more dramatic than the change from when Symmetra became a DPS. This is Doomfist becoming a tank, more specifically a dive off-tank. The main part of this change would be to his health pool. I feel that since he has a smaller hitbox, he should be held at 400 health, similar to Zarya, except with no shields and instead all health. Of course, this would have to adjust the shields gained from his passive. I think a cap at 200 instead of the original 150 would work great. I also think the shields gained per enemy hit with an ability should be increased to 45 from 35 and to 100 from 75 when using his ult. On the note of his ult, I think since most tanks have some sort of crowd control function with their ults, Meteor Strike should knock down enemies caught within the inner ring and knock back those caught within the outer rings. A drawback to this would most likely be a higher ult cost or lower damage of the ult overall. Now you're probably wondering how this change makes him an off tank, so let me take you back to the passive. My suggestion is that this passive can add 15 shields per enemy hit to his allies within the 8 to 10 meter radius, with a cap of 75, and of course it would decay at the same rate as Doomfist's shields. However, I do think the shields he provides to his allies should add to enemy ults, unlike Doomfist's own shields, because it'd be adding a lot more health to the enemy team with no ult gain in return. I feel this change would effectively transition Doomfist into the role of a dive and or off tank while not changing him or taking away from his brawler aspects. These changes do make some aspects of his kit a little strong. Him having more health makes him harder to kill, though I think his damage needs to remain the same, possibly increasing the cooldowns or ult cost or reducing the speed and distance of his abilities. Any combination of these would work really well to balance him. Next we get to a few smaller changes. To start, Hammond. For him, I think a similar tanking mechanic that we've given the new Doomfist passive should be applied to his adaptive shields, where within his 8 meter radius that adaptive shield already has, all allies are given 50 shields, again following the same decay but different ult charge mechanics as the parent, as well as 15 per enemy within the radius. The interaction between the new Hammond and Doomfist would be a normal stacking mechanic with no caps so they do not override each other's overshields. Last and definitely least is Reinhardt. This change was suggested to me by my friend Frank, or Creepy Bald Guy as he is known on my channel. The change is to his charge, and it very simply allows him to destroy shields that he charges through that are placed, or trigger the broken cooldown if they are held. Very simple, but would add some extra utility and give Ryan some attention and give players an actual reason to charge aimlessly into the enemy team. So after finishing the recording, I realized that I might have glossed over something. So to explain my position on this, I am part of the Overwatch community that believes that every character should have an ability bound to their primary, secondary attack, and then primary, secondary ability, as well as an ultimate, of course, and then a passive of some sort, whether it's a passive attached to another ability or a passive attached to a jump or a crouch, or just a passive that's just a passive. I believe that all characters should have all those abilities because it makes it easier to balance just a small part of their every character should have a passive, because with a passive it makes it easy to balance, because if they're too strong, just tone down the passive. If they're too weak, tone up the passive, and it's just a really easy thing to do. I feel like it's just easier to balance characters if they have more abilities for you to work with. So this other character that I am talking about is Winston. He is the only tank that does not have something bound to their alternate fire. So I have an issue with like characters just having abilities missing, like Reaper, like the old Mercy, like the old Diva actually, and of course like Winston. So this small change, it's going to be adding a secondary fire and also a passive. So the idea for the ability attached to his alternate fire would be a reference back to the Recall animated short, where his shield generator malfunctions and explodes. I had the idea maybe he throws out like a little bomb that explodes. That's about what I would say. Damage numbers, I don't know, because this is just an idea that I had after I finished recording. And then for the passive, I had a couple ideas. There's a couple of hero concepts floating around that have something, as I'm calling it, it's a static barrier. Basically, if Winston were to take fatal damage from a single instance that was like 150 damage or above, he would be brought to 10 health. He wouldn't die, he wouldn't be made immune, but he'd be brought to 10 health with a little static barrier effect appearing around him just for an instance. It basically allows him to survive one more instance of damage after he dives in, or if he's trying to dive away. Just give him a little more survivability, since he is a kind of a weaker dive tank, especially if you're playing Reaper. You can just melt through his shields. So let's say Reaper's like max damage if he lands a headshot, and all of his pellets is, I'm pretty sure 150. I'll have like the actual number up edited into the video, but it's like 150 damage. But he takes that damage, and it leaves him with 10 health, and he can jump away. Maybe this is right on the Reaper's reload. He can jump away with 10 health and drop a bubble where he lands and survive. That's about the entirety of the extent to how I would imagine it working. Just another addition. I didn't feel at the time that it was major enough to include, because it's just kind of something that I'm theory crafting with. It's one of the small changes, like with Reinhardt, that I feel will just give him a little more impact into the game. That's about it. So that's my suggestion for how to rework several of the tanks within Overwatch. The next video in this series, maybe in 2 weeks, we'll be exploring the support category, and more specifically, the main feature, Brigitte. As usual, thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe for more content. Go follow me on all my socials to keep up to date with me outside the channel. Go to my Discord and Patreon to support and join me there, join the conversation. Leave your thoughts on these reworks in the comment section below, and I will talk to you guys and see you guys in the next one. This is Matt, the Emerald Avenger. Peace out.